my name is Michaela and welcome to MBTI Types and Politics. I am very frustrated right now because I just filmed this entire thing and my head was cut off at the top of the video because I stupidly did not check the camera angle to see if I was in the frame all the way. So I'm doing this again. Hopefully it works out this time. Anyway, MBTI Types and Politics. So I put out a survey recently and there were over 3,000 respondents across all 16 MBTI types. And basically, I had a lot of questions, so I'm going to divide this video into two parts. This first part is going to be MBTI types in like the political parties, who they support, Donald Trump, Joe Biden, how likely they are to have a career in politics, to vote in elections, all of that good stuff. I'm essentially just going to go over each question and talk about the averages and which answers had the highest proportion of a certain type, which sounds weird right now, but I think it's going to make sense like when I actually go through the video. And then at the end of the video, I'm going to put in all of the little pie charts so that you can look at the specific data for your own types for each question and really get to see how other people with your type answered to each one. I do have some disclaimers, like always. It's probably going to be boring, but it's also important at the same time. But feel free to skip ahead. I have the timestamps in the caption below if you do want to skip ahead. But otherwise, here are some disclaimers. All of the questions pertain to the United States, and the reason I didn't limit it to only American citizens is because I wanted a global perspective on this. I don't know if it sounds weird, like in retrospect, kind of looking at that decision, but I just wanted a global perspective. And then also just be aware that not everyone might be sure of their type. I did put in a question saying, are you sure of your type? And then everyone who answered no, I didn't include those responses. But it is in the end subjective, I guess you could say. Also, the answers are not evenly dispersed. That is, there's like hundreds of answers for INFP, and then not as many for like ESFJ, ESTP. A lot of the sensing types don't have as many answers. I did get enough in the end for each type, but just be aware that it's different proportions for each one. And also I just want to let you know my Instagram demographics because these survey respondents come from my MBTI Instagram account, and I think it's important to know these demographics because it is certainly not even across age or gender. So 6.3% are younger than 18, 78.5% are ages 18 to 24, so basically the majority of this survey is based on 18 to 24-year-olds. 8.3% are 25 to 34, and then the remaining proportion, which is relatively small, is older than 35. Also, the gender distribution is 60.2% for women and 39.8% for men. So it does, in general, lean towards women as well, but that's a little bit closer than age in terms of how evenly dispersed it is. If you've sat this far through all of these disclaimers, that is very commendable, and thank you so much for your patience through my boring monologuing. But here we go with the actual data results for MBTI types and politics. The first question was, which political party do you most identify with? And the options were Republicans, Democrats, I'm independent, other, I do not know, or I do not pay attention to politics. And for some reason, when writing down these options in here, I wrote down I don't care when the option was I don't pay attention, and I do fix it eventually, so I apologize for that. But I have the averages written in black. The type of the highest proportion for each of these categories is in green with its percentage, and then the lowest proportion is in red. So in general, these trends are interesting because they'll kind of crop up in the rest of the controversial topics and political party answers. Feel free to pause this video to look at the percentages more and to go back to the end of the video and compare these averages with your own type's results, which I have included all the data at the end of the video. For the next question, which was how likely are you to vote in national elections, I only provided the highest proportions as opposed to also providing the lowest proportions, only because I thought that it became too statistical and there are just too many numbers with those floating around for these questions, as well as how likely are you to vote in a local election, just because these were similar, so I stuck to the highest proportions. Anyway, what I found most interesting about this is the ESFJ's commitment to the community, because they were the highest proportion of the types to say that they were highly unlikely to vote in a national election, but they were also the highest proportion to say that they were likely to vote in a local election. The next question was, do you support Donald Trump? And I think this is a question it's also important to look at the averages, which again I've put in black at the top, because of the way that they trend, and then also it did align kind of how I expected it would with ESTJ having the most support for Donald Trump because they were the ones that said they were the most Republican, and then similarly the types that were more Democratic tended to be the ones that did not support Donald Trump. Likewise with Joe Biden, the types that tended to lean more Republican were less likely to support him, like ESTJ and ENTJ, but also the types that consisted more heavily of Democrats were less likely to have vehement support for Biden, and there was a lot more uncertainty in this poll compared to the one with Trump. This question was, on average, how much time per day do you spend on political material? This can include watching the news, reading articles, discussions with other people, podcasts, etc., and the options were none, less than 15 minutes, 15 to 30 minutes, 30 minutes to an hour, and more than an hour. There were definitely several options that these were spread across, and this is why I think it's more interesting to actually look at the specific data for your type. Of course, I was fascinated by the means that I calculated and the general proportions, but it is also very interesting to just look at your own individual data for this one. The next question was, how likely are you to pursue a political career, with the options of very likely, likely, unlikely, very unlikely, and also I already have a career. And of course, I don't know as well. Naturally, the types that spent the most time reading or reviewing political material were also the ones that trended as most likely to want a political career. And of course, another trend that was definitely manifesting throughout all of these survey questions was that the ISTP is more or less indifferent to politics in general. And this is of course why they are the highest proportion of very unlikely to choose a political career. Alright, so I now want to put in all of the data just for each type so you can see the data for yourself. I'm not going to talk through it because then I'm just literally saying like ENTJ had 39.12% for this one and 46.34% for this one. Like that's just going to be very boring, I think. So I'm just going to literally put in the results and you can just go through, pause, look at the data as much as you want and move on as much as you want. And then also just don't forget that I will have a part 2 up that will be going over MBTI types and controversial topics, which include abortion and gun rights and immigration, all sorts of heavily debated things. So if you want to be notified when that comes out, just don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you want, just so you don't miss it. And with that being said, here's the data. Alright, so that was MBTI types and politics. I'm really excited for part 2, so again, don't forget to subscribe if you want to not miss that. And then thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week.